Hello and welcome to Season 2 of the Coming Down to Earth with Spirit podcast with me, David Hale. Like with Season 1, we will continue talking about all things spiritual in a real and down-to-earth way. So I hope you can join me on my podcast journey so you can learn from my own spiritual journey and experiences with spirit in order to help you on your own spiritual journey and development. So join me now as we get into this episode. Well, hello everybody. I hope you're well. Thank you very much for tuning into this podcast again. I hope you're enjoying the episode so far. And currently I'm recording this from a very wet and rainy Aylesbury in the UK. So I hope the weather where you are is much better than it is here, because based on our summer in the UK this year, I'm starting to feel like a duck. Yes, I did say duck. But anyhow, let's get into this episode where I wanted to talk about meditation and the link between meditation and mediumship, and whether you need to meditate to do your mediumship or not, because there are varying opinions out there. And as always, I'm saying to you that I'm going to give you my view and my opinion on it based on my experience. And the reason I'm just pointing that out again is because there will be mediums out there, maybe more the old school mediums, who will completely disagree with what I've got to say. But that's fine. You know, you have to go with who you know, who and what you resonate with. But let's look at meditation first before we get too deep into, the links to mediumship and whatever. Now, if we look at meditation, I have learnt that meditation is a discipline. It's not an easy thing for a lot of humans to do. And that's because we're not naturally, conditioned to sit still and not think. We're not conditioned to stop still and clear the mind. As humans, we're conditioned to get on with things, to work, to be busy, to think about this, to think about that. So meditation is not a natural state for humans to be in, which is why a lot of people struggle to meditate, including myself. Maybe not so much anymore, but at the beginnings of my development, I did struggle. But I also found during my development that, meditation does have many benefits, which I'm sure most of you will recognize or understand if you do meditation yourself. I'm sure you've heard people on TV or in the media talk about their own experiences with meditation, but we're not going to get into those benefits because that's a whole topic by itself. So let's just go back to my own development. So when I first started developing spiritually, mediumistically, I meditated every day for 4 months because I wanted to get it down. I wanted to make sure that I could meditate properly, because from what I'd read online and from what I was taught, that you have to meditate to raise your vibration. You have to meditate in order to connect to spirit. And I've since realized and found out through my own work with spirit that that is simply not the case. Now, if you are a developing medium who's currently sat in a development circle or group or what have you, your sessions may always start, I'm just speaking from my own experience here, your sessions may always start with a meditation, whether it be 20 minutes, 25 minutes, half an hour, whatever. Because when I was sat in open circle, that's what we did. We always start every single session off with a meditation. Generally, you're taught that if you meditate, that raises your vibration and that gives you your connection to spirit. But I've come to learn, as much as meditation can help. I'm not saying it doesn't help. It can help, but meditation is not needed for you to connect to spirit. And now I've probably got people shouting into their phone or to their headphones, "What? What do you mean it's not needed? I've always been told that you must meditate in order to connect to spirit because it raises vibrations, etc., etc." Well, I'm not trying to undo any work that people have done or people have been taught, but I have to give my own views on it just to help people, because people get so wound up and they get so worried if they haven't meditated. Are they going to have a really rubbish reading? And I must meditate. What if I don't? It's going to go wrong. So this gives you something else to think about this episode, right? So The reason that meditation is not needed is because meditation is a passive act. Meditation is for self, and that which brings all the benefits which you've heard out there, like it calms anxiety, it centers yourself, it clears the mind, it opens the mind, and all those things, right? It's a passive act. It doesn't lower vibrations. It's just a passive act which helps you to relax, right? Now, I have to say, for some people, it does help raise their vibration. And if that's you, that's fine. Keep doing it. But some people are just not good at meditating. I've heard lots of mediums tell me they don't like to meditate because they're not good at it. They can't, it's not something that they enjoy or are naturally good at. So they don't do it. And that's fine, right? You do what you need to do. But when we say raise a vibration, let's talk about that quickly. I always got confused and I wondered what people were talking about when they said, we're going to raise a vibration. I thought, what vibration? What am I raising here? And raising the vibration for me is basically raising your energy. It's putting your mind into a good mindset, into a good space in order for spirit to communicate. So in that case, we need to do or perform an active act to raise the vibration. So it could be something like putting your favorite piece of music on and blast it up, which really gets you need to do basically do something which gets your engine going. Meditation does not get the engine going. It does the opposite. It calms you right down. You need to do something which gets your engine going. It revs you up. It gets you excited about it. So again, whether it's listening to a piece of music, whether it's dancing around the kitchen, doing something, whether it's exercise, whatever it is that will help you to shift your mood, to elevate your mood into a good space, that will raise your vibration. And again, meditation doesn't necessarily do that. But I also have to say, there are some people who don't even do an active act, because actually the way the mechanics of mediumship work is that it is all through the mind, which is why we call mediumship these days mental mediumship. It's mind-to-mind communication. We are using our mind to connect to the spirit world. We don't need to do any fancy rituals to connect to spirits. Maybe at the beginning of your development, you may need to go through this. You may need to do your meditation. You may need to do certain acts. But when you've been doing it for a while, you understand that all we need to do as mediums is shift our mind to the spirit world, focus on the spirit world, and that's where the communication happens. So yes, whilst you're developing, I would say, do your meditation, find your ways of raising your vibration, of getting yourself into a good headspace. Do all that, practice that, because yes, it does give you a great foundation. It gives you a great knowledge and a base to pull from should you need it in the future. But actually, as you go further along, as I've just said, you may find yourself doing less and less of that, like I have, where I'm now able to, and I say we as in, mediums that have been doing it for a while, we're able just to shift our mind to the spirit world, and that's when the communication starts to come in. But let me link that to what I'm about to talk about, which is a bit scientific, but I'm not a scientist by any stretch of the imagination. I'm not a science buff, but I have looked at this thing we call the states of consciousness. And this really allowed me to understand how mediumship works, the mechanics of mediumship. And it's interesting that I looked at this about 2 years ago and I did a bit of research on it. And I was recently listening to a podcast interview with a medium called Charlie Kelly. And he's got loads of videos on YouTube. And he is a very down to earth, no nonsense, say it as it is medium. And I like that style. And he talked about this as well. So it was a nice validation for me that what I looked at was correct, right? Because sometimes, with this work, people say there's no science behind it. Well, actually, there is. The 4 states of consciousness is science. It's how the brain works. So I'm going to try to explain it as clearly as I can, just so you can understand what I'm talking about. So the 4 states of consciousness is the state in which our brains operate at during the day as humans, right? And the brain is measured, the speed of our brain waves are measured in hertz, right? So when I say hertz, that's what I'm referring to. It's the brain waves, and that's the measurement they use. Like centimeters and inches, when you're measuring other things, the hertz is the measurement of the brain waves. So as humans, we operate generally in the beta state. Okay, and that's measured. Now, the measurements, they're slightly different on different websites you look at, but I'm going to give you the measurements that I've got. They're not too far out from each other, but when we're in a beta state, our brain waves measure at between 13 to 38 hertz, right? That's our normal state. That's our everyday consciousness. This is a normal state of mind whilst we are awake and doing our normal day-to-day things, right? It's the thoughts that we act on. It's when our minds are doing mental activities, right? That's the beta state. Then when you go into the alpha state is measured between 8 and 12 or 8 and 13 hertz. And this is when we start to relax the mind, or we drift away. You could say this is our inspirational state, which we go into when we're doing things like reading or daydreaming or inspired writing. Or if you are simply relaxing or doing meditation, you'll be in the alpha state. Now, keep that in mind, the 8 to 12 or 13 hertz, right? That's the measurement for that state. But actually, if you look at the next state, which is the theta state, the theta state is where your brain starts to go into the mediumistic state. That's between 4 to 8 hertz. And this is the state your mind will be in if you're demonstrating your mediumship or doing psychic work, or the state you'll be in if you're doing some light trance work. It's 4 to 8 hertz. Now, I know from doing this work that when I'm reading, whether it be a private reading or on a platform, my logical brain goes completely out the window, and people have seen it where I start losing my words because I'm so blended in with the spirit world. My mind is so in the spirit world that it's not functioning properly on the logical side of my brain, because I'm just saying what spirit are giving me. But when I try to sometimes interpret something by using my own words, I find myself trying to find the word and I forget it. But that's because my brain has slowed down. It's no longer in the beta state or the alpha state. It's gone into the theta state, which again is the mediumistic state, not the meditation state. The meditation state is the alpha state. The medium state is the theta state. So therefore, there's a discrepancy there, and that if your brain is only in the alpha state when you're meditating, how can you then connect to spirit? Because you'd need to slow it down even more. So the meditation state and the mediumistic state are in two different wavelengths. There are two different speeds of the brain. So it just shows from that meditation is not necessarily going to help with the mediumistic connection, because it's not at the right state, if that makes sense. And the last state I mention here is the delta state. And the delta state is measured at less than 4 hertz. So this is what you would call the sleep state or the unconscious state. And this is the state your mind will go into if you are doing a deep trance demonstration, if you are in a deep trance connection. So there are different levels of trance. So the theta state is one level in which you're doing light trance work, as I've already said. And then the delta state is where your mind completely slows down, completely slows down, so you can get that deeper connection with spirit if you're doing trance. And you could also say that this state is when you're put under an anesthetic and you have no awareness of it. So it's that kind of state. So this is science. Again, I'm not a science buff. I'm not a scientific person myself, but I did look into this because I found it really interesting, and actually it does resonate it does resonate with me based on my own experience whilst I'm reading, where I completely lose, I lose the plot basically, and I'm just paying attention to spirit. So I know that there is a part of my brain, from what I feel, has either shut off, it's shut down, or not shut down, I would say, otherwise I'd be dead. But part of my brain is slowed right down to allow me that pure communication with spirit. And to also give you something else to think about, let's just give you this example, which I read somewhere as well, is that the different states of consciousness are compatible to different expressions of mediumship. It's a bit like, driving a car. You wouldn't go up the motorway in first gear. You'd move it to the fifth gear. Likewise, you wouldn't pull out of a space in fifth gear. You'd move out in first gear. So it's about being in the right state for whatever you're doing. And the alpha state is not necessarily the right state to communicate with spirit. It's the right state to meditate, but they don't necessarily go together because they are placed in different states based on the speed of your brain waves, basically. So as you'll see from my learnings and my experience, meditation is actually not needed to communicate with spirit. It's about your mind and how you push your mind to the world of spirit in whatever way you choose to do that. Again, I'm not saying stop meditating, right? Because meditation works for some people, it doesn't work for everybody. But I just wanted to give a different point of view on that connection to spirit, because, old school teachings, they do need to change a little bit. They need to keep up with the times. And whilst meditation is lovely, it's not necessarily needed to communicate with spirit. And look, the only reason I'm talking about it is because, people get so worried. They get so concerned. What if I don't meditate? And I was the same at the beginning. What if I haven't meditated? If I don't meditate, I can't communicate with spirit. Oh my God, I've got a reading in 5 minutes. I've had no time to meditate. How am I going to do this reading? Oh my God, I'm on platform in 10 minutes. I've not done any meditation. How am I going to connect to spirit when I haven't meditated? None of that stress is needed. You don't need to stress. All you need to do is just to put your mind in a good space, get excited about your reading, get excited about your demonstration. That will put your mind in a good space and you move your mind to the spirit world. So, with all this said, again, I'm not telling people what to do. I'm not telling people you mustn't meditate or you must meditate. I'm giving you my experience and my knowledge from what I've learnt, what I've experienced through doing this work, through learning from other people as well, like Charlie Kelly, medium, as I say. And yet just know there are other ways to do things, right? And some things that you're taught are just old school learnings that haven't quite caught up with the modern world or the understanding of exactly how mediumship works, which is through the brain. It's mind-to-mind communication, as I said. So I hope it helps. I think I'm going to leave it there. I think I've said all I need to say today. Look after yourselves, and I'll speak to you soon. Well, there you have it. That's the end of this episode. I hope you enjoyed what you heard and you found it interesting. There are plenty more episodes to come, so stay tuned, and I'll speak to you all soon.